Okay, greetings and aloha, everybody out there in cyberspace, on Facebook, YouTube, podcast world, wherever you are tuning into this message at this exact time. We are streaming live on my Facebook wall. So, wow, okay, how to introduce this show? Well, first of all, this incredible sage of a human being that I am really just blessed to have the opportunity to be with here right now. Richard Rudd, he is the founder of the Gene Keys work, which is really just incredible. In fact, I actually have my Gene Keys book right here. We have about 3 of these in the house. There's 2 of us in the house, but somehow we have like 3 of these books.
Cool.
And I think that's because of one of our friends that had the house before we came in. He was a big explorer into this work as well. So I think he left the book over. So there's 3 of these kind of like orgonite grids. If you know what orgonite is, it's like just gridding the field, right?
Yeah.
So this is the 5th recorded conversation between us on my platform over at least 3.5 years, maybe 4, I think. And we've done a lot of really awesome conversations. We've dove into a lot of different areas, and the Gene Keys, which we're going to talk about now, we did a lot on it. So I just want to say that. So if you're like new to this, or you want to unpack this more, go through some of those episodes. Just go to my podcast, or type in Ronnie Landis, Richard Rudd, and then all those episodes should show up. There's 4 of them aside from this one. And we're going to do something really unique today, aren't we?
We are. We just had a spontaneous idea. So
yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll get into that, but yeah, just Richard, so great to have you. And what a time in human history that we are living in. It appears to me that it is the holistic, like the hologenetic, the holistic fractality of all that has been, all that is, and all that will be is meeting its singularity point, disguised as politics, disguised as the coronavirus, the lockdowns, the all the different iterations of phenomenon that have been happening. Kind of looks like a big movie to me, but that aside, underneath all that is just it's the awakening, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's like this. Someone fired the starting gun, and now there's a process underway, and that process inevitably is going to lead, I think, to the decline of the probably fairly swift decline of our civilization, and as we know it. And I don't think that's hit the mainstream yet. I think we're in a state right now of anesthesia. So most of our governments are just throwing money at the problem, and kind of, which is the right thing to do actually in some respect. But what it's doing is it's giving everyone a kind of false sense of security, and then that will come back to haunt us, in a year or 2. And I think then things will really start to come undone a bit more. And I'm not saying that like I want that to happen, but it seems to be the way, and it needs to happen in some way. What we've built is unsustainable. And I think probably everyone watching this already agrees with that, I imagine. Yeah, I think it's going to be it's interesting time ahead. But yeah,
that's, just something interesting for me about that. And I've said this a number of times to friends recently. I just got a new kind of insight into my own process over the last, I'd say, 10 years of just being an investigator of everything. It started with getting into a raw food diet 11 years ago, cleansing, detoxing, having this whole awakening of just the food system, the food and agricultural system. Then I also got a sneak peek into the medical allopathic system and the pharmaceutical industry. And that opened me up to a different perception of a part of reality that I was shielded from culture and what I thought this thing really was. And so that started a long process. And it's interesting now over the last 10 years, I feel like for me, I've come full circle in a big way. And part of that, over the however many years, there had been this restlessness, like almost like bouts of existential crisis. I've experienced depression, compression, all the different shadow patterns that.
And you're writing an amazing book right now, right, on addiction.
That's right, and that book is just the culmination of all that exploring. And but for such an amount of time, I mean, like years, I would just have this inner conflict, this existential angst, and I'd look around and be like, why am I feeling this? What's wrong with me? Like, why am I not able to get on? Why do these shadow patterns start to creep in? Why does it feel like sometimes there's like some kind of psychic attack, or I'm just, just weird, just kind of weird stuff. And I thought like, oh, maybe I'm just getting too emotional. I'm not, I need to, straighten myself up. But, it's interesting now, to your point, I'm sharing this because of what you said. I realize now it was because there was a swelling, there was some kind of inflammatory condition within our planet, underneath the surface, behind the scenes, and I no longer was able to medicate and to sedate and numb that the nerves, so to speak. So in other words, I was feeling what had already been going on. And interestingly enough, for me personally, and I have a lot of people that have said this kind of thing, I feel more relieved now than ever before, because it does feel like what was not sustainable. And I knew it wasn't sustainable, but by all accounts, everything seems like it's working. All the houses and buildings are up, people are doing their thing, driving in cars, just everything is going along.
I think a lot of people will relate to what you're saying, Ronnie, and because many of us are feeling the same way. We need a pattern breaker, a circuit breaker, and because the pain and the pressure has just become too much for many of us. And for some of us are much more sensitive than others. I think you're actually a very sensitive man. Since I've known you, you've really been someone that has owned, the pain in yourself and explored it. And I think that's why I want to do this thing with you today. Should we talk about
that? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just completing that point and moving on. It's a great introduction, because you're bringing up something that is very important for all of us, especially as instinctive mammalian humanoid creatures, right? We are part of an animal kingdom, and there's instinct involved. And like, so when an animal, for example, they can sense something is brewing, whether it's an earth change, it's an earthquake, something is going to change in the environment and affect their survivability. There's a premonition that comes, and that's what I'm speaking to. I didn't realize that angst was a feedback. It was a premonition, but I didn't know how to decode it. I thought it was something was wrong with me. And so I just want to say that, because that's basically at the individual level for people watching this, what Richard kind of just shared with us. I feel like this is the particular process we're going through, and we need to get out of denial, and actually look at everything on the table and assess, okay, what is it for me to do? What can I do? And I think that what we're about to get into, and the gene keys in particular, is one of the greatest reference points for the individual to navigate the forest, instead of bumping up against the trees of phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the, the framework behind this, because I'm going to introduce this thing called the Venus sequence, and the framework behind it is I'm about to launch a big virtual retreat that takes, it's going to take our global community of people through this individual sequence, through a profile. Those of you who don't know Gene Keys, I'm going to show you in a minute, because we're going to go live online and get a profile. And then I'm going to take you through Ronnie's Venus sequence, which is an aspect of the profile that has to do with our wounding. And I've never seen his before, and he's never seen his before, or you may have seen it, but you may not have explored it.
How do you go through it?
Yeah, so we're going to just touch on it and explore it. So you could do it at the same time as watching this. You could go also, or you do it afterwards and get yours and have a look at it. And it just opens up a whole world. You'll probably have loads of questions, and I'll talk to that at the end. I'll just say, okay, this is what I recommend where you go from here. But and obviously I'm going to invite you to come on this retreat if you feel courageous enough. Anyway, so what best thing to do, Ronnie, is you're going to share your screen, right? So if we go live to genekeys.com.
Okay, let me go ahead and share our screen. I got that primed up.
Hopefully this is going to work. There we go. Okay, so if you go to the top where it says free profile. I hope there's no glitches today. So put in Ronnie, yeah, it's some kind of email, the city you were born in. If you don't know your exact city, you can go nearby. Gene Keys is very forgiving in terms of it has an astrological component, but it doesn't need your exact time. Often it's helpful if you have it, but roughly when you were born, and if you know the day you were born, you're also going to have a lot of information, even just from that. So pretty much everyone I know knows the day they were born. Sign up to my Gene Keys Unlocked. Yeah, that's a really cool thing. It's like a pulse letter and then go up a bit and create my profile.
Okay. Perfect.
See that blue button? So, yeah, so click that. Okay, so here's your profile, and so it gives you some little sentences just to begin your process. But for what we're going to do today is go down the page a bit. Again, that's going to give you paragraphs about your life, your purpose, your life's work, various things. So like a lot of detail.
So
yeah, we'll go through. But we're going to go below that. We're going to go down deeper into the pattern. Yes. So that's your full profile. Okay. On the right, there's an audio that's relating to you. But what I want to do is, if you see at the bottom of the profile, there's a slider where it says, see that slider? Yeah, slide that across. Yeah, slide that across to Venus. If you can, perfect. Exactly, because this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at this Venus sequence. And then on the right-hand side, switch on over here, let's advanced, switch everything on. So switch on the pathways, that button there as well. Oh, let's just switch everything on. And so, all right, that's it. Perfect. So now you have like the full information, and you can actually download this as a PDF if you want. It might even be clearer if you do that. So somewhere, I think it says below on the slider on the right, underneath advanced, a bit further to the right. The other right.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Beyond that, over to the leave the slider on Venus.
Leave it on me and come over here.
Yeah, I mean, come off over there. Download profile at the bottom of that. Yeah, there you go. Okay. You download that to your. You got it? Is it coming? I'm not sure you clicked it. Did you?
I did. Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay, cool. Great. It'll be a bit clearer. I think you'll be able to make it a bit bigger.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, so go down a bit, and then you should have, hopefully, perfect.
Okay.
So this is what we're going to play with here. If you can make it a little bigger.
I'm not sure how to.
You don't know how to do that? Yeah, that's it. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay, so you may not be able to read all those words on there, but I'm going to just play in this with you today. So this is called your Venus sequence. And these are basically algorithms that are encoded into our DNA. And I don't want to spend too long explaining where this came from or how I got it or any of that stuff. But it's a journey. It's important to know. It's a journey. This isn't like an astrology reading where someone tells you something. And in fact, the way I'm doing it today is definitely not how it's meant to be done. But I wanted to give you know, because it's a personal journey that each person takes. So, but I wanted to give a flavor of, because I've never done this before live like this, and because I don't recommend doing this like this, because it's a journey that you take and you learn about it yourself and you apply the insights to your everyday life. So basically, if you were to come on my retreat starting in about a week or 10 days, we're going to explore this over 6 months, right? Because and only this. And it's really, really profound, because you have to take it deep into your life, and you're living your life, but you also, to understand these codes and how they operate, you have to see them operating. And it's about how the Venus sequence, what it does is it shows how our heart closed down, you know, from a very, very young age. In fact, how it closed down even before we were born. in some respect. So what I'm saying is that we're each born with a wound, you know, this with a grain of suffering that we bring into the world. And then that wound is our journey. It's dictated by that core wound. And our gifts come out of that wound, and all our genius comes out of that wound, and our spiritual path comes out of that wound, because the wound is the healing of the wound is the opening of our heart. You know, it's the opening to love, to universal love, to remember fully that we're a divine being, that we're eternal, right? And so the game of the divine is that the divine or God, or whatever you want to call it, placed the highest aspect of our consciousness in the depth of our suffering. Okay. So this sequence unpicks that storyline and takes us on an incredible journey into our specific wounding patterns, and therefore our specific gifts. And so when you look at these numbers in these spheres, there's 6 spheres there, and you start at the bottom, by the way. Then these numbers are the numbers of the gene keys, right? Of the gene keys, you know. So if you have the Gene Keys book, then you can look up these numbers. So you have, as your purpose, you have Gene Key 59. That's the one at the bottom, okay? And then it's got a dot and it's got number 1, and that number is very important. That's called the line number, and these are related to the hexagrams of the I Ching. There's 64 of them. There's 64 gene keys, and they have specific meanings in our life. And so the 59th gene key, you can see the words there. They always have 3 levels: the shadow, a gift, and a siddhi. A siddhi is the divine essence. So here it's dishonesty, intimacy, transparency. And it starts with purpose, because any relationship, because it's about relationships and love. That's what's called the Venus sequence. It's about love and relationships. And in order to enter clearly and cleanly into any relationship, you have to have a sense of, what is my core purpose? You know, so for you, Ronnie, I was just touching on it, you know, the purpose is all about exploring intimacy. You know, so the whole of your life purpose is rooted in a comfort or discomfort with intimacy and relationships. So it's perfect that I've chosen you to do, because you're the, you know, your eventual life mastery will be in this domain. And every part of your journey, whatever comes at you, every relationship in your life is all teaching you the art of transparency, the art of overcoming deep dishonesty, because we all have deep dishonesty at some level. We start being dishonest with ourselves, and then sometimes it comes out and we're not honest with others.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, can I ask a quick clarifying question on that? Yeah. Because I know for me, dishonesty, and that would be the shadow frequency, and I have like an allergic reaction to lies, and that's like, and you know, like that's part of the energy that's definitely fueling me a lot, and people watching this kind of get that about me. So I'm just tuning into that. That would make sense to me why, and also taking the stick to myself. Disciplining that thing inside of me, that shadow inside of me that thrives on dishonesty, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, when you have a purpose like, you know, like that, it means, and it's the basis of your relationships, it means that from time to time, there's a good chance that you'll meet dishonesty in others. And that's part of your dharma. You can see the line there, the pathway that links to the next one is called dharma. Dharma is our destiny. It's what life has prepared for us. So every relationship that comes to us, whether it's good or bad, whether it's happy or sad, whether it's, whatever it causes us, it's for our growth. For you, it's always pointing you towards that dishonesty or that intimacy and that transparency. That's a journey. So part of your journey of purpose may be to forgive dishonesty in others, and to understand that humans are dishonest because because the truth often hurts. And we're afraid of truly being honest with ourselves and with others. And it's a real process for each one of us. So that's kind of where your journey begins. And you can see also there's a line 1 there, right? So you have line 1, and there's only 6 lines. And the lines are really colorful, and they give us another part of the story. So for you here, it's the anchor or the loner. So it says that Ronnie Landis is either a very, very solid man that you can always rely on, the anchor, always honest, always like honest about himself, how he's feeling, and just really there. Or the other side of that pattern is a loner, and the loner, and loner here it doesn't favor you. It's not a kind of, because you can be a loner and, it means that probably there is a part of you that's a loner, but also that's a part that can cut yourself off from others.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're not honest enough, or you're afraid then, or you're not on it. It's like there are ways in which we shut down.
Yes.
And so the first line, that's its way. It's, there's one of 6 possibilities, and the first line is very solid, it's very reliable, but also can be difficult. It's like you can be difficult, when the shadow kind of rears, you can be difficult to get to know from others' perspective, from a woman's perspective, or anyone, someone who knows you really well. It can be like, sometimes Ronnie is like, I don't quite know how to reach him, that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So anyway, that's like beginning of the journey. And then the next sphere up is called attraction. And it's another word for it is the attractor field, because we all have this attractor field, and it's we get that from the position of the moon, actually. And so it's about magnetism. And here you've got the 30th gene key. And so it's what you're drawing in. It's what kind of relationships you're drawing in, and what kind of pattern that you're drawing in order that you can fulfill your purpose, right? Of intimacy, of learning intimacy. So the 30th gene key is very, it's connected. It's also, it's very, it's about desire, right? And it's a third line. So you just have to weave this story together. Third lines, you can see the words there are like promiscuity, playfulness. So this is like a sexual key. These are the sexual keynotes, because it's about what you draw into your aura. Like those patterns are things that you might draw in. You're very playful, and you like to not, I would say here, like that, those are the kind of energies that may come your way. And the third lines are quite uncertain. So some of the relationships, I can imagine, I don't know, you can tell us if you want, but sometimes relationships won't last with the third line. So they'll come in, it'll be like a dalliance or a play, and then there'll be something, and then they finish, and you're like, oh, and then maybe they begun through desire, and then there was a growth and a learning, but then they kind of finish, and then
kind of like,
and it's a journey. Does that?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I've had, I can't tell you how many soulmate encounters I've had in my life, and there's been a lot of iterations, particularly in the past, where there'd be a very deep connection, a very rapid connection, and then at some point it would just phase out or fizzle out, and that was always kind of a disappointment, but not really understanding fully what was going on. And So yeah, I definitely resonate.
And I guess it means that they can begin with a lot of juice, because
Yeah.
the 30 line 3 is a lot of juice. There's a lot of like, wow, this is amazing. And then as you said, they can fizzle out. And that doesn't mean that that's always that way at all, because each one of these gene keys is a journey: desire, lightness, and rapture. This is like, rapture is the highest expression. It means that eventually, relationships can become, whether they're long, short, however they are, they can just be really transcendental for you. And so you stop worrying about, that's this phase where you stop worrying whether they're going to be around forever. You just love the moment. And that's what the lightness is like, instead of trying to cling, the 30th hexagram from I Ching is called the clinging fire. Instead of trying to cling to what it is, to the energy that maybe it started with, you enter into your heart, and then this lightness comes, and then you're like, oh, I'm not going to put so many expectations on this, and then I'm going to play like we're going to just play like two dolphins, without too many expectations. And it doesn't mean it's a kind of not a deep, amazing relationship. There might be a lot of depth there. There probably will be, but it means with a third line, you need to kind of you always need to have a lot of coming and going, because the third line, because it so loves change, and that's why they end, because it needs, like, it's almost like you need someone where you can go apart and come back, and go apart and come back, and maybe not live together, or at least not for too long. And then, because, or in different bedrooms, or, so that you have this distance, so you have the change built in. Otherwise, the relationship, that third line in you, just kind of goes, as you said, it fizzles out. The juice fizzles out, because the third line is always like, I need change, I need change, I need change, I love change. So, and that's the same for, and so you have to, once you know your keys and your lines, what kind of things work for you in a relationship, and everyone's different. So that gives an idea of the sort of things that might come towards you and how you might begin to handle them. Any relationship for you, I would say, needs a lot of that change built in, a lot of flow, a lot of rhythm, a lot of coming and going, a lot of, bye dear, see you in a month, I'm going on retreat back into my anchor cave, and whatever it is, or I'm on my next diet, or whatever, my next kind of exploration into whatever. But you keep coming back and deepening and deepening and deepening, so then that's how you can have a lasting relationship, if that's your dharma to have one, but it's going to need that anyway. So that gives you an idea of that one. Any questions about that one?
That feels really, really spot on.
Good. And hopefully a bit liberating, just to know that that's what you need.
Yep.
So the next part of the sequence is where it sort of starts to get deep, really deep, because you have these next three spheres called IQ, EQ, and SQ. And I'll kind of treat them together. They're a triangle. And IQ is our intellect, our mental intelligence. EQ is our emotional intelligence. And SQ is our spiritual intelligence. And they're all kind of built on each other. And they have to do with the ways in which ultimately, this is where the wounding comes in. We shut down in layers over the course of our childhood. So you have three phases of childhood, and I won't go too deep in this. We have infancy, adolescence, infancy, puberty, and adolescence, those three main phases. And they're 7-year cycles. So infancy 0 to 7, puberty 7 to 14, 8 to 14, and then adolescence 14 to 21. So those are 3 cycles of imprinting, and we are imprinted in cellular cycles of 7 years. That's something anchored in our DNA. So what we're doing here in the Venus sequence, we're traveling backwards through those 3 cycles and looking at what happened that shut us down. Right. And we're going backwards in time, because, and it's not that there was anything terrible that happened necessarily. It's just, this is the imprinting of the sacred wound in each person. And this is how it works in you. And in reverse, this is how it's released. So it's released in a sequence. So we start with the outermost, which is the mind, the IQ. And the IQ, or our mental intelligence, this is how our mind controls our feelings when we feel threatened, right? So this is something that developed in your teenage years, a pattern, a habit, a way of thinking, a way of looking at yourself, that kind of a behavioral pattern, a teenage behavioral pattern that was hiding over something deeper, a set of feelings, because the feelings wound is deeper. It's a deeper layer. So but our minds are incredibly powerful. We often try and think our way through our feelings, to control them, to hold them back. So you got a 51 line 1 here, 51st gene key. And this is like a really powerful kind of key, because it's about, the shadow is agitation, right? And then the gift is initiative. And then the siddhi, the flowering of it, is awakening. It is the gene key of awakening. And it's a line 1 again. So you have another line 1. And the line 1 is the contemplative mind, okay? And so you have a gift of having a contemplative mind. I have one as well, same line 1 in the IQ. And what that does, it means that the mind, has this gift of being able to look inside itself and dig for answers and find things out. And so it's a natural inward-looking mind. And at the shadow frequency, there's a word in brackets there, hidden. So this is like the teenager who you can never find. It's like, where's Ronnie gone? Yeah, and he's like hidden away in his cave, because because he's in his inward mental field. And so it's a pattern where the mind kind of represses the emotions, in some way. So and it can do that in lots of different ways. It wants to, in this sense, it's like holding back the agitation, so the mind goes inwards to hold back from feeling the agitation underneath. Right? Do you see what I mean? So there's a gift in the contemplative mind, because it can discover everything, but also there's a trap, and the trap is you can use it to escape the pain, kind of, kind of, but it's always there as agitation. So it's like you never really feel settled. So you might go off and be a monk, for example, or you might go off and do lots of things, or you'll go, you're exploring always inward, like whether you're exploring through diets or you're exploring the body or in the inner world. And you're not, so you can either use that as a way to kind of open and go in, as you were explaining, like, I don't know why I feel this uncomfort or agitation, or what, I got to do something. I got to take the initiative and find out where it comes from. That's the gift of your mind. And to realize that, the other side of that mind is it can close off. It can close off from feeling the deeper feelings that lie underneath. And it's a protective layer. We all do it. We try and protect ourselves. We try and protect our heart from feeling the deep wounds. And this is, so it can be a whole world view. And actually it's a trigger area, this, in our Venus sequence. So when you kind of see through that skill you've learned, and then you bust yourself, you go, I can hide in there, as well as doing the genuine digging. I can also use it to hide from deeper feelings that I don't want to feel. Do you know what I mean? Yep. So it can actually, you're actually repressing the awakening from appearing. Yeah. So that can be a way that you've particularly used when you were younger, whatever your teenage years were like, but it's the sort of disappearing into the bedroom kind of syndrome, to avoid the world of pain out there. Yeah. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes complete sense. I look at, so agitation is like stress, friction, static, that kind of thing. initiative to me reads like initiation.
Hmm.
So moving
Yeah.
away from the patterning or habituation to stress or overwhelm, right? And the stories that can come along, like, oh, I feel overwhelmed, therefore it's okay to cut corners, or it's okay if I don't get back to somebody, or it's okay like that. Those stories are low in the lower realm, so to speak. And then, like you said, I can, just like all of us, we tend to rationalize or interpret our stress in this case, and there's some kind of narrative or storyline about it. So that keeps us trapped. So that's kind of just a little bit of how that reads on a shadow pattern. Then the initiative is the initiation. So that's like getting out of the mentalizing and actually getting into feeling and feeling
Yeah.
what is actually there. And then the third is awakening, and that feels pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, totally. And when you look across at the EQ, you see what that kind of mind is hiding from sometimes, and
Uh,
you see what gifts it's holding back. It's the 35th gene key that
they kind of read parallel to one another.
they do. Well, one is Mars, one is Venus, and they cross over, so they're kind of, they have this yin yang inside us. They're the animus and the anima. They're the male spirit that we have and the female inside us. And they're either in battle or they're dancing, and so they're the mind and the feet and emotions. They're these two planes that we exist on. And when they come into healthy balance, that's when we get to the SQ at the top. But otherwise, we're at war. One is holding back the other, and depending on our chemistry, our gender, our lots the ways in which one wins, and but the mind is always like in some way holding the emotions in check. That's its capacity, and it can do that in lots of different ways. Yours just looks inward and does it in a very inward way.
Yeah.
Others do it in other ways. But what's underneath there is this kind of, the 35th gene key is hunger. It's like it's the emotional hunger for more of something. Like there's this emptiness of like, I want something and it's not there. And remember, these are imprinting cycles. So this is like in your second 7-year cycle, that would have been a feeling that was probably imprinted in you through whatever environment you were in, whatever was happening around you. There was a feeling of being kind of not being nourished enough, emotionally,
Yeah.
whether by your father, your mother, your parents, whatever, but they're not getting the emotional nourishment that you needed. And therefore, if you look at the line 6, it's like alienation. It's like being pushed out, feeling like they've forgotten about me, or it could be the world. It's a feeling. It's really deep, like underneath, and it can be very uncomfortable, because it's a kind of gnawing. It's what drives the agitation, in the mind. Do you see does that relate? Can you relate? Can you remember that time of your life?
Oh, totally, absolutely, it's spot on.
What was it like?
Well, I didn't have a paternal father growing up, so he was never in the picture. My mom was doing the best she knew how to, and she was constantly kind of like she was constantly going to school and taking classes and doing a lot of so she had a lot of projects going on. She was kind of like always achieving things, and I was somehow kind of wrapped up in, and also there were like schemes going on too, like very very kind of like not kind of innocent in nature, but a lot of scheming-ish type of energy, a lot of a lot of gigs, let's say. There's
Yeah,
a lot of random gigs going on, and so I
right.
got brought into a lot of these random situations as a young child, and even into preteens, and so I was exposed to a lot of just, I'll just call it random things,
Mm.
that there wasn't really a container
Yeah,
or a developmental kind of. I was just there wasn't
shuffled around.
a lot of shifting around. There wasn't a lot
Yeah,
of guidance per se.
yeah.
So on that front, that yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then, yeah, even this hunger thing, right? And I feel like
Mm.
the hunger is like, that's the addiction frequency, the hungry ghost that
Mm. Yeah,
never, you can't, that never, is satisfied and is just trying to do more, get more, feel more, be more, but is never
Mm.
ever satisfied. I feel like that was present there, and I may have adopted that as a behavioral pattern to find significance in the world.
Mm.
So that makes sense.
And you look at this, the flip side of it. Look at the gift there that's there emotionally for you. Like when you can go through that wound, when you can kind of go through that hunger and just let that feeling come again through your body and let it out and let it just breathe, and instead of letting the mind stop it, you know, then that can then begin to release that memory pattern
Mm.
through the body. It's not comfortable. It's none of this is comfortable, you know, because we have to let the memory out through the, you know, it's there anyway. It's there whenever, you know, you get close to someone, because it'll just be there, because it'll come back. Because whenever love comes, these are the feelings that will come with it, you know, and they're, because they're the shadows around the heart. So they're memory patterns.
Mm.
But the beauty underneath it is there's a love of adventure. You know, the little boy that just wants to, you know, so there was a part of you that really wanted to explore lots of different situations, people, countries, nations, you know, movement, travel, you know, that's the 35th gene key, loves all that adventure. And it has but at the same time, it needs to be deeply respected, you know, and feel included. That's what the sixth line is, the reverence. It needs to be somewhat like a child that needs real care and a lot of like emotional nourishment, and that life is an adventure. But so that's what you have to give yourself now through self-parenting, is allow yourself to feel that adventure, you know, life being an emotional adventure, and that those emotions can open up the heart. They can, you know, they're boundless. Like the emotional realm is just, it can open us up to life, and it connects us through that sixth line of reverence. It connects you to all the different lineages and beings and kind of hierarchies of nature, and the animals and the creatures and the stones and the rocks and the stars and the ocean and the wind and everything. The sixth line is connected to everything.
Mm.
So that's the real emotion that's underneath. That's what's kind of wants to breathe again inside you. That's your emotional intelligence. Your emotional intelligence is literally to be able to kind of encompass any feeling or any other person's feeling, anything, like from the negative to the positive and anything, and just go, yep, that's part of it too. Yep, come on, give it to me, breathe it in. Like it's all part of it. You know, there's a lot of richness there, and it sort of fits with the attraction field as well, which is drawing in like, you know, interesting, juicy, you know, gritty relationships that have a lot of, you know, desire and, you know, kind of, you know,
Yep.
humor and passion in them, you know, and the 51 is like the mind is just like exploring all this, you know, so all of this is part of your intelligence, you know. Your karma brings this to you so that you can develop a balanced intelligence. That's what that pathway is about. So then when those feelings are released, then you travel back even further to the SQ, and the SQ is imprinted in the first 7 years of our life, and probably very early on actually, because it's literally our physical imprinting. It's very physical. It's deep in the body. So in here, you get to see, you got 21, gene key 21, line 5. And so you see control, authority, valor. And it's the fifth line, which is about mentoring and role models and integrity. And so, you know, that what's really, I mean, that line is really key. And the SQ really relates, it's our soul. It's really the essence of our soul. You know, it's our heart fully open. So, you know, so what your soul yearns for and has always yearned for, like from a very young age, is like people you can look up to.
Yes.
That's the mentoring. People who are good examples who you can look up to, and who you know, whether it's a grandfather or an energy of, you know, like a grandmother. It's like those people that those elders that really can hold you, that can, you know, have deep integrity. That's really important, you know. And so whichever of the 6 lines you have in the SQ, it's what you long, it's what your soul longs for and will always seek in relationships, you know. So you will be, you know, unconsciously will seek a partner who you can look up to, you know, who can really who really has that special wisdom, that you know. And so it's great to know that, because that can also be a trap, because it can be like, oh, they look like they have it, and you're looking for it, and then they don't deliver it because they're human. Yes. And then they disappoint, and then you're like, oh, that didn't work. But you have to realize that, you know, that was just you as a child. You know, whether you know, that were there any role models who you really looked up to when you were very young?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've said this many times in different interviews. When I was 4, my first conscious memory was of Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee actually was kind of codified into my mind, and was this kind of surrogate role model, you know, from from the stills, or I mean the you know, the movies and the presentation of him anyways. But I felt very deeply connected to his spirit. It felt like I connected with that very, very early on. And yeah, throughout my life I've definitely done that, and in different dimensions, whether it's like in sports. So there'd be particular sports icons or sports figures that I would be really, I never felt like I was ever obsessed or any of that. I just felt like I was enamored. I was intrigued, and I would follow their journey or whatever, because it also motivated me. So there was a motivational force in that, and they were kind of a reference point of kind of a direction that I was on at a particular time, and I think that stayed with me. And you know, even like I say, like a lot of role models that I have, or people that I'm deeply interested by, are people like Rudolf Steiner and Victor Schauberger and Walter Russell, you know, and Nikola Tesla, and these kind of characters. These are kind of like, these are examples. I mean, there's certainly people in our day and age, and it's no mistake that you and I are connected, and I have a similar sentiment with you and others, and obviously there's the age gap as well. So yeah, I'd say that I feel like that's something unique about me, in that sense, that I'm almost like collecting I'm collecting like comic books, like comic book characters, or like card characters of people, whether they're long past or still here, or even in mythology. That's a so that's a really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this SQ, this spiritual intelligence is really about our mythology. So it does have what you've just described is exactly what it does. It looks for its own reflection in others. You know, it looks for its highest reflection. So you can see its highest reflection. There's authority and valor. You know, it's someone that really is a person that has merged wisdom and love, and which is what valor means. You know, the nobility of reaching the highest aspect. And the shadow is control, because it's, you know, it's like, it's a, you know, the negative side of it is like you don't want to let go. It's like not wanting to let go. And but also, you know, what's to be acknowledged probably is that you looked for them probably because they weren't there physically.
That's right.
You know, your father wasn't there, right? And so there was, you know, your mother was there, and she was, you know, the mother is always some kind of, you know, deep, incredible figure in our psyche. But like, and often it's like other, like whether it's a grandfather or whether it's an uncle or someone close who actually could be in your aura. But by them not being there, obviously, you kind of looked elsewhere. So it's just really important to realize that your soul is looking for that reflection of itself, because that's you, you know, that is the kind of full expression of your soul, is to kind of manifest that valor. And then that valor flows back down through the rest of your sequence into the adventure of the emotional realm, and the awakening through the mind, and the drawing in of all these juicy relationships, and, you know, and interest, and then anchored into a deep understanding of intimacy, you know, of the meaning of intimacy. And so the final kind of part of the Venus sequence journey takes us all the way back to this one called the core, and it's the pathway of realization, and it's really the deepest part of our journey, because it's like beyond the kind of birth point. You know, it's like this corresponds to our conception time, and the core itself corresponds in a way to the moment of conception, because it's the core wound. It's the sacred wound, and everyone has a, you know, this way you really come to the line. You got 21 again here, right? So this is like so this would like be, it's kind of interesting that you have two of them there, and so it's a really powerful theme in your life: control and authority figures, and how to grapple with, you know, figures who try and control or hold on to control.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and you yourself like needing to let go of control, and then kind of move into true authority rather than the clinging type control. And being a leader as well is very connected to being a leader. You know, the 21st gene key is all about leadership, and but it's kind of leadership by example, by embodiment. You know, so yeah, so you have to move through the wound yourself, and then you can become like that authority figure. You can begin to speak with the energy of authority, because you've done it, you've been there, you're human, you're one too, you know, you're not like this far away leader. You know, so there's a lot in here about that, I would say. And this is a fourth line, and the core wound has more to do with our collective, what we're holding for the collective. It has more to do with our ancestral DNA, and it's not even connected to us. It's just something we hold on behalf of the whole. And so there's 6 of them again. And so you know, it's like the first line is repression, the second line is denial, the third line is shame, the fourth line is rejection, fifth line is guilt, and the sixth line is separation. And so those are the 6 core wounds of humanity, and everything comes out of them. So you have, whoever you are watching this, you have one of those. And you probably don't know it, because this is a very, very, very deep place in your being. But it informs everything to do with love and your relationships at the deepest level. So for you, Ronnie, it's all about rejection, abandonment. It's like that is the core wound. And that will be the place where the heart is guarding itself most, like, you know, and at a deep, deep level. And if you take that as like, at a mythic level, really deep inside, it's like every human being holds that fear in some way, because we're thrown out of the womb, you know, and so each of the wounds is a mythic wound. So because we leave Eden and we're rejected, and we're left up somewhere on the outside, we're no longer inside the mother, you know, where it was all cozy and we didn't have to do anything or worry about anything. We didn't even have to breathe. We had no responsibilities. Right, and then suddenly we're out, and it's like, but there's a wonder with these lines of the wounding, because the fourth lines, I mean, I've done like retreats and live workshops on these things, and it's magical, because what we sometimes do is we get all the wound people at the lines, and we put them in groups. So we get all the fourth line core wounds, and we put them together. And all the third line wounds, we put them together. They're all the shame ones. And the second line wounds, they're all the denial ones. And they don't really know what their wound is, because it's like they're looking at each other going, what does it mean, denial? And then the first line is repression. And they're all just kind of going, oh, I don't know, where do we begin? But the fourth line wounds they always really stand out. I just have this memory of a course with about 100 people, and there was about 10 fourth line wounds in a little group, and they all sat around and they were just kind of holding each other and touching each other, and just they were you wanted to be in there, it's like, oh, I want to be with them, because they had this incredible gentleness, because they recognized that this fear of rejection responded to gentleness, and that underneath it was this sweet, tender heart that was just so soft and yielding and beautiful. And that because each one of the wounds has this incredible expression of love underneath it, and the love comes out in a slightly different way through each person. So the fourth line wounds are so sweet, and also through the Venus sequence, it gives you can give advice to people. So if I had your partner here, have you got a partner now or not at the moment?
I'm married.
Oh, you're married. Okay. So you can tell her this from me. It's like, like the way to Ronnie is softness, like, if he feels no pressure, and if you feel no pressure, and you are treated with like, not like caution, but just real softness and romance, and like kind of that, then you will open. You can't resist, because your whole cellular DNA is like, that's me. That's how I open. You got it. And everyone's different, so, but that's how that's how someone gets past your control issues, the guardians at the threshold, like, I'm not sure you can let you in here. I don't know if I fully trust you. You might reject me. I'm not sure. You did the other day. You might do it again, and so the smallest things sometimes trigger our wound patterns. The tone someone uses if they're a bit short or tired or anxious or whatever, and they're like, oh, just, you do it, and you're like, oh, I just asked you if you could help, and an innocent little moment suddenly hits that core wound, and all the other patterns clench around it, that we've just talked through. And this is the Venus sequence. Like, it's like, I can do it in a half an hour with you, but like the journey is long and deep and beautiful, and it's a lived experience. We have to go through these things in layers and understand them in layers. So anyway, that was a bit of a journey. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you kind of?
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely incredible. And I mean, I learned a lot, and just get to revisit a lot of these things. It all lines up perfectly. It all resonates completely.
Anyway, there you are. That's sort of a quick ride through the Venus sequence.
Is there
I'm exhausted now.
I feel it, but I mean, it's like, just doing a quick little last run through for people watching. This is the whole gene key setup when you set up your hologenetic profile. That's in the beginning of this video, if you didn't see it earlier. And this is absolutely masterful, really incredible, all this information. And then there's an audio specific to your life's work I'm going to be dropping into that. Just incredible. So I'll go ahead and go.
So as I said, Ronnie, like you can see that it's a journey, and it requires time to really get it, which is why the retreat is long. It's 6 months, and it's like starts soon. It starts November the 2nd. Registration closes the end of next week, the 30th.
Perfect.
So it's a bit kind of last minute if anyone's interested.
So let's talk about that for people.
Yeah. And it's also part 2 of a 3-part profile journey. So we decided to open it up, even if you haven't done part 1, just because it's because of the time really in the world, and because people are alone and they are thrust together in more intense circumstances, and the Venus sequence can really help transform our relationships, and it can help transform. If we're alone, it can help us with our loneliness, because our loneliness is also part of our relationship to ourself, to our heart, and that's all in the Venus sequence. Everything I've just described, you can go through that completely on your own, and you'll it will open up layers of, it's like the heart has all these petals. They describe it as the chakra. The heart chakra has all these petals, like a lotus flower, and the sequence opens them up petal by petal, petal by petal, because the heart opens gradually over time rather than in a rush. So that's what we're doing. And if anyone's interested, go to the website genekeys.com, and it's right on the homepage, Venus Sequence Retreat. Come and check it out. There's lots of information in there, and a video from me, and quite a journey.
Beautiful. And then I'll mention they can also use our code, or my code, which I'll just call hhphealth.com. It stands for Holistic High Performance Health. So hhphealth.com. If you're watching this or listening to this and this resonates with you and you really want to do this, which I highly encourage. I mean, we just went through my Venus sequence, and that's just really kind of the surface of what you're going to go through, and especially over a 6-month period of time. It sounds like to me that this is a committed container of alchemical proportions of human transformation. And I know there's a lot of people in my world, my audience, my community that is all about that. So this is really the opportunity to dive into that. And with Richard and his community, I mean, that's just absolutely amazing.
Community is a real part of it, actually, because, so we have a lot of communal experiences through the retreat, and there's a strong rhythm. So every week you get sent something, and, and the rhythm continues. The commitment is a couple of hours a week, in terms of you are asked to watch something, maybe read something, listen to a meditation, things like that. Integrate it, contemplate your gene key. There's 6 spheres, so there's 6 gene keys, 1 per month. So actually, when you make it really simple, that's all it is. It's like for 1 whole month, you're contemplating that key for you, whether it's whatever they are. That's a journey, and you're going to be able to go really deeply into that, and then you're going to be able to share with others on the same journey. Through the web system that we use on the retreat. So you can come in, and in the 3rd week of each month, we have community calls across lots of time zones. So you get to meet people who are doing the same journey, but through their keys, and they're applying it to their life. So they share their stories, not just their sort of story, but their heart stories of or perhaps their breakthroughs. Because this stuff opens things up, and it really especially opens it up in our relationships. So it's really tender, but we really look after people in terms of the teachings themselves are kind of a container that allows each person to heal their own heart. But we do it in company. So we're all healing our own hearts, but we're all doing it together. So it's incredibly powerful in that way. And there are also lovely musical meditations that are woven in, and there's a mythic story to the whole thing as well, because I'm a lover of myth. So there's a sort of right brain story that goes the whole way through, just as the left brain sequences and the gene keys is also going on. There's also this right brain kind of fairy tale that we're following.
It's absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of people tuning in here. We got about 50 people live with us right now on the Facebook Live, and like 30 comments. A bunch of people already said, I'm joining, I'm doing it. So that's amazing. And if anyone's watching right now, please share this, get this out to anyone and everyone you can. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that may not be watching this right now, or even know that this is going on, and would be.
No one knows it's going on, Ronnie, because we just decided.
Well, there you go. So support the mission and just share it with anyone, or tag someone in the comments that you think this would resonate with. I know that this is a blessing to everyone that resonates with it. So last thing I'll say on that, again, just use the code hhphealth.com. I want to, can you tell us again one more time where they can access the 6-month journey with you? It's on the genekeys.com website.
Yeah, it's on the landing page. It's just under the intro video. So you click. It says Venus Retreat, so you can click on that, and
Okay.
and then all the information is in there. Everything you need to know.
Okay, I'll post that into the comments down here below.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, well,
Great.
This is quite a journey. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was quite revealing. Just put myself on the
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie. I really appreciate you kind of being there for it.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you. This is great. So I guess I'll let you go. It's a little later over in your time, and probably going to go take a few breaths and sit down and just let this integrate.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite a thing to look at someone's whole sequence in half an hour like that, and just breathe that in, the story, the inner story of your heart, of a person's heart, and that's what we're really looking at. So I don't know anything else out there like this that does this. So it's really precious, and I really invite anyone that feels courageous and is ready to take a journey like that into love. The next 6 months of your life focused entirely on love.
This is the ultimate pairing to, or vice versa, with this addiction work that I'm so focused on, particularly around this program I call the 21 Ultimate Day Dopamine Reset course, and that's something that's coming down later. But it's basically the biochemical and psychological integration of addiction and transformation, understanding that the body has biochemical dependencies and so our physiology and our biology and our neurology has a lot to do with how we're interacting with our emotions and our patterning and the kind of this dopamine hits that we get in our society. And
absolutely.
And then pairing that with psychology is great. But then bringing this in, it's like I just see this overlay map of like, you have the physical, the psychological, even the other points that I mentioned, but then really like you're bringing in kind of like a cosmic revelatory understanding of like you as a cosmic being, even though you may not language it that way. That's how I see it. Like, you are this kind of you are this immortal soul in this human experience. So there's a cosmic intelligence that I think is happening with
totally true. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, Ronnie. Really appreciate the time.
I appreciate you, Richard. Thank you so much. And
and you'll be in there, right? You're coming on the retreat, so we get to see you in there.
I had not made a decision just because I hadn't explored it. I'm just running. I'm just like, every day I'm just getting by.
So give it some time.
Pants here. So this is an invitation for me to drop into that, and I'll talk to my partner as well.
Yeah.
And we'll drop into that.
Absolutely. And let me know. I'll send you both of you a free code for it, obviously, so you guys can do it together.
Wow, thank you. That's
really powerful to do it together with someone.
That sounds like an offer I can't refuse.
Yeah. And also do it with your, I'm sorry I can't offer that to everyone watching, but and if you do know someone who's a good friend, it doesn't have to be your partner. It's a really nice thing to do with someone and they do it at the same time. It's powerful.
A buddy system.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well then let's close out the recording now. And again, thank you so much, and thank you everyone listening, tuning in. Jump on board with this. It looks like I'll be involved as well. And let's just keep having the best day ever, and then just the best life ever. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ronnie. Take care.